Feel the room. When you walked in this morning, does it feel any different now? We come together because we're reminded of something. We come together to share, hopefully, all of us, our good face and our not so tough times, our vulnerable sides, our broken sides. And they say that it's that broken heart that really lets the love out, that is so vulnerable and so available. And so when we experience the broken heart through loss, especially loss of a loved one, that heart has a chance to open in a new way because it's broken open. And normally, without that kind of loss or trauma or whatever we want to call it, we're not expanded. We are living in our sunshiny days. And I love my sunshiny days. Those are our healing times when we can recharge and regenerate. So when the tough days come along, the really tough days, that we have we'll call it our love muscle. And to develop a love muscle, you're going to have to exercise it, which means loving, being vulnerable, being open, reaching out. In those thousands of ways, those micro connections that are available every day when we're waiting in line at Trader Joe's or at Starbucks, at the hardware store. We're waiting to get on a flight. We're waiting somewhere. It's the opportunity to ask the person on their phone, what you looking at? Is it interesting? Is it uplifting? Is making that connection. Because you know when you do, something magical happens. When you make that connection, something passes between us. And it reminds us that life is worth living because it feels good. They say that love makes the world go around. Money makes the world go around. It's love that makes that going around worth living. It's what we show up for, is that sense of well-being and belonging. And it's that warm log on the fire that Shazam was speaking about. It's that sense of safety. And if we think about it, which we do we also feel about it? And that's a key because we live our lives from the neck on up, maybe the heart a bit, but we live in this area. And we call this the spiritual area, the third eye and the crown chakra and the way we can speak. And yes, we do talk about the heart, but we forget the whole rest of the body, which supports this. And so, if we think about love grows. Love grows out of sexuality. That's the mud that the lotus roots itself in, our foundational aspect of our bodies. Those desires. Now, without those desires, we don't move. They're not to be denied. They're not to be shunned or pushed away. They're there to be incorporated, and it's a beautiful energy. And when that energy moves up through the body and hits the heart and transforms and continues to move, this is how the flower grows. The lotus grows out of the mud in the darkness up into the light. And the final expression of the lotus is the fragrance that's released. That's the final resting point, sort of, is that ephemeral fragrance that comes. And that's the flowering of love. And for that flowering to occur, we need the whole body, not just the heart, not just the mind. We need the whole organism. We think about love, it's the first thing that the body needs when we come out of the womb. That touch that is not abrasive, but is caring, that is basically it's sensual, it's comforting. And without that love and without that touch and without our needs getting met through that love and devotion, we don't make it. It's instrumental to our very well-being and our very life. So the quality of love that you give and receive really is equal to the quality of your life. Is your life worth living at the level of giving and receiving love you're getting right now? Could you expand that? Could you be 5% more available to one another? Could you listen a little deeper, to be just a little bit more present to the other, especially in need? And as the first thing that we need when we come into this life, what's the last thing we need as we leave? And if that's not love, I don't know what it is. It's that comforting touch. It's that showing up in the silence, not expecting anything, just being present to the suffering or to the fear or to whatever's there at the end, which also could be joy and celebration. We won't know until we go. And I'm going again this afternoon to a loved one who's very last stages. So how is it that we show up for one another? Do we have the courage to have our heart open as we witness somebody else's pain? Or do we close down to protect ourselves? How available are we? And it's a tough one. Imagine you're a 10-year-old little boy, and he's in a very dark tunnel, a long tunnel, happens to have two of his friends with him, Tom and Johnny Ballinger, and they're walking in this tunnel, and it's a drainage tunnel up by Lake Temescal. It's about a quarter mile long, pitch black, and we have no light. And we're getting more and more scared as we're going into this tunnel. We don't know how long it is and where it goes, and it's just, it's terrifying. And it gets to the point where we're all ready to turn around. And I reach my hand out, and I can feel Tom. And I instinctively grab his hand. And Tom grabs Johnny's hand. And something happens just in the holding of hands. We get courage. And these three little boys continue into the darkness, in the water, stumbling over rocks, hearing the sound of the cars above hitting manhole covers that are making this boom. And it is so spooky. But with that courage of each of us and holding hands, we make that quarter of a mile journey through the twists and turns of that tunnel. And when we finally come around the last turn and we can see the light, it's like we jump for joy and immediately let go of our hands because we're 10. And we've done it. And I couldn't have done it without them. And I'm sure they wouldn't have done it without me either. So you can see that just holding a hand, not even talking about it, just that touch, helps us when we're in those darkest places. And in our darkest places, is that the time that we reach out? Or is that the time that we go, well, I'm going to do it myself? I don't want anybody to see me in need. I don't want to be this vulnerable. And so we don't avail ourselves of the people around us. And we wonder why we get depressed and go down. What if we were to reach out more, not just on our sunny days, but on our tough times, our tough days? There was this young woman, and this is in New York. There's a story I heard on the radio. True story. And she was coming back from the store, and she got on the subway with her big bags, and it was hot, and she found that coveted seat right by the door. And she sat down, and oh boy, I'm going to get home, and then in walks this guy with one of those red hats with the disturbing words on those hats. And then she sees the Bible in his hand. And then she starts hearing the words that he has to say about damnation and sinners. And the whole flavor of the car and the whole flavor of her mood changes. And it feels terrible. People are starting to shout at him and yell him to shut up and to get off the train. And she's feeling that, and feeling the tension in the car as it grows. And then something inside her just sort of snaps, and she realizes that she's speaking to this man. And she's saying, "Mister, if you don't shut up, I'm going to start singing." And she heard herself say that, and she goes, "Oh boy, now I'm on. I don't know how to sing. And what song am I going to sing?" And then out of her mouth comes, "Row, row, row your boat gently down." And as that comes out, you can feel just in hearing that, something shifted for us. And across the aisle, little boy picks it up, her mother picks it up. And before the whole "Row, row, row your boat," the whole first chorus goes around, the whole car has joined in. And the energy shifted in that car from darkness to light. What happened to the darkness? Nothing. Light was brought in through that woman's heartfulness to start that. And the story became popular and it became viral because we all identify with the story. We all can recognize the kindness and the love that's there. This is how love shows up. This is the courage that that woman had to really try something new and to engage everyone. And then everyone got a chance to join in and to assist and uplift each other with their voice. And I'm sure that that stayed with everybody on the train, that we were taught by her action another way of being. This is the power of love. The power of love changes us, gives us courage, gives us strength to do things that we didn't know possible. It helps us at the beginning and it helps us at the end. And we have that chance to build our love muscle every single day. Now, if we don't build that muscle every single day, what happens to your muscles if you don't exercise? Yes, they go away. Now, my son is very buff. He loves to work out. And so I can punch him in the arm as hard as I can. He barely feels it. I have scrawny arms. He will hit the bone easily. I could use a little more working out. It's the same with the love muscles. If you don't exercise them, unkind words can punch hard, and it can hurt. And when we're hurt, we don't want to exercise. We don't want to be loving. But if you practice it every day, you get big and strong like my son, and you can be punched, and you're resilient. So the point here of loving and practicing loving kindness is resilience, because you need it on your tough days. You need to be able to draw on that reserve when the times really get tough. And as you know, and as I know, times will get tough. And we're in some of those times right now. So how do we move forward and not using some of our old strategies? The old strategy is to other the other. It's them. They're causing my suffering. They're causing my pain. Or is it my pattern and my way of relating to what's happening? And it's always my way of relating to it. Because what's happening, there's lots of people in this country that are applauding and thinking this is the best thing that's ever happened. You know, we need an emperor, we need a Führer, we need a king to really get things going. And then there's the others, the people that see that this is not kind, this is not the way to go. And so how do we move forward without closing our heart? How do we fight without losing ourselves in the fight and becoming the other? Because it's so easy to go to the darkness. It's so easy to go to meeting violence with violence. And somewhere we know that that doesn't work. You don't spank a child to get them to stop crying. It doesn't work. I've tried. No. But you get what I'm saying. Sometimes we need tough love. Really, really tough love. And Reverend Joan talks about tough love, and she won't mind me sharing this. She shared it at the pulpit several times when her second daughter was having addiction problems and money problems and boyfriend problems, and it was a mess. And what Reverend Joan was saying was, I could no longer support this addiction by empowering her. I had to cut her loose. I had to not put her out of my heart, but put her out of my house. Toughest thing I've ever done. And so she asked her daughter to leave. Her daughter was very upset. This was hard on both of them. But over time, the daughter took years. The daughter came to realize how much her mom loved her by doing that. And so we can say that love is medicine also. It has healing properties. And when you take a medicine, it's not supposed to feel good. It's supposed to change your body, change your whole being. And tough love, if it's true love, changes your being. It can heal you, as it did her daughter. And so sometimes love can be very sweet and lovely, and sometimes it's tough and it's nasty tasting and you don't like it, but over time it turns sweet. And that's another aspect of love. So if it doesn't look sweet all of the time, perhaps it's medicine that will in time really work and be beneficial. And so we need each other. This is why we come together. We come together in the good times to celebrate, And more importantly, we come together in the tough times to hold each other's hands in that tunnel. And without each other, we are pale in terms of our potential. Because we're here, and I consider this our sole purpose in life. And when I'm on the Oprah Winfrey Show and she asks me, Christopher, what's the sole purpose in life? I'm going to say, Oprah, sweetheart, it's to become masters of giving and receiving love. That's it. It's always, that's what it's been. Is that we become this beacon of giving and receiving love. We're kind of a radar tower. We send out a beam and we receive the beam. And we keep everything safe because we know and we're in touch with what's going on, like an air traffic controller. So the last little bit is to leave us with a chuckle. And that's, how do you recognize the genuine, the true genuine? How do you recognize love? And then Dalai Lama came to New York, the Madison Square Garden, and it was full to capacity. And there was a big hoopla, and here he comes in with his robes and the singing, and there's the chanting, and the horns, and it's the Tibetan free-for-all with the flowers, and this is a big deal. Big throne. And he ceremoniously walks up to the top, and here's the throne, and he's looking at the throne, and he's up on the big teleprompter, so everybody can see his face. He looks at the throne. He's wide-eyed, very childlike, sweet guy. And he goes and he sits down. And as he sits down, he gets this wild expression. It's like, whoa. He sits down again, and then he starts to bounce. And just like it's like all of a sudden there's this wave that goes through the whole audience, and everyone is laughing and celebrating with him. That's the genuine. When you feel it, it penetrates us. And you know it when you feel it. And so, in the process of giving and learning and receiving about love, it's learning to bounce. It's playful. It's just playful. So I'm going to end with an affirmation. I'm going to say it very slowly. Divine love flows through me. It flows through all of us. It's our very nature. We are joy-filled and grateful. And so it is.